Hello everyone, so in today's video, let's start. I was pretty mad because of the whole live stream thing. I was just reading about 26 minutes, but then it was at least 2 seconds, and now I have to read all the way again. Pretty mad. On Thursday, most kids at the camp were crushing right along until yesterday. But after those letters from home came, it seemed like everyone hit a wall. A lot of my classmates are homesick, and they've been asking if they can go back early. But the Christian says the only way we can go home is if there's some sort of medical reason. Well, that shouldn't have put that into people's head, because now kids are trying to get sick on purpose. Melinda Hansen was acting really strange on lunch. At lunch, it turned out she ate 3 servings of stew to make herself sick, which seemed a little extreme to me. But after spending a few hours down the nurse station with education, Melinda was sent back to rejoin her group. Jillian looked it one step further. Mr. Jefferson found him in the cabin, clutching his stomach next to a half-eaten stick of Duradent. So that was the end of the road for Jillian. Ground. A few hours later, Jillian's mother arrived to pick him up, but by the time they drove away, he seemed to have a full of recovery. A lot of boys started to make about how Jillian had the right idea, and the corporation caught wind of it. The next thing we knew, the corporation were going around collecting everyone's derided, so no one could follow in Jillian's footsteps. That's bad news for our cabin, because with the wet towel and dirty clothes all over the places and kids showering sweet water, our cabin already smelled like a monkey house. The derided was probably the one thing keeping the foam in our cabin from reaching toxic level. And if we get sick, we're all going home early. That might be okay for everyone else, but it's not alright for me. That might be okay for everyone else, but it's not alright for me, because the sooner I go home, the sooner I have to face Dad. On Saturday, to be honest with you, I had forgotten all about the rally until he returned to camp yesterday morning. But when he got a whiff of our cabin, I'll bet he wished he just stayed home. It turned out Rolly got an infection from Garrett's tooth, and that's why he was gone for so long. Rolly brought the tooth with him, but I'm not sure the gathering's supposed to do with all this point. Rolly was coming back at an awkward time. We've been all preparing for the last night of the trip, which we have to spend outdoors. I'm kind of looking forward to it, because that one night we won't have to stay in our sticky cabin. But I'm not sure my group can even survive sleeping out in the elements. We're supposed to build a shelter and fire tomorrow night, and I have no idea how we're supposed to pull that off. Mr. Jefferson has been trying to teach us how to do some basic outdoorsy thing, but it turned out he just being useless as the rest of us. Yesterday, he was trying to teach us how to build a fire, and he broke the no electricness rule by using his phone to look up how to do it, but his battery died when a couple of classmates got a hold of a watch video of screaming goats. Scream! Ha 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 ha. I guess Mr. Jefferson learned a little bit before the battery died, because he got a fire going and told the rest of us to get some kindling. Nobody knew what kindling was. though, so we brought back everything we thought might burn. Rolly came up with that looked like a bunch of weeds and threw them to the fire. But that's Tolly's more than it. It turned out stuff Rolly put in the fire was actually poison ivy, and this morning he woke up covered in spot. Mr. Jefferson mustn't inhaled the fume and gotten in his lung because he was having trouble breathing. Wheeze, gasp. The nurse called Mrs. Jefferson to come pick both of us, and I think you're done for good. That means my group is the only one without a tribulation. I heard Mrs. Gazino scrabbling to find a replacement. But no, Dad, we're willing to give up to the rest of the weekend to come out here. This is really bad timing because it's supposed to rain tomorrow night, and we haven't even started building our shelter. I tried to spy on the group. I tried to spy on the group that was a bunch of Boy Scouts and to see if I could pick up any pointer, but those guys weren't willing to give away their secret. Hey! Wow, we were trying to set up our camp. Same other group were in our cabin. I guess they mustn't heard about Graham's snack. Because his stash was totally clean, the thief also went through my back and found my baby wipes, which they used up in our bathroom. They mustn't try to flush them down the toilet because now it's clogged. The worst part was that the toilet overflowed and the water ran all along the floor and the path from the bathroom to my duffel bag. Everything I owned was wet except for Grandpa's book, which is thieved and tossed onto a bed. I was really mad, but when I started flipping through the page, I realized the guy who raided our cabin might done us a huge favor. The book got the useless stuff in it, like a chapter on how to make a working radio out of the household object. Potato radio. Shortwave radio is an exciting new hobby sweeping our nation, but we need all that experiment, blah 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 blah. There was a lot of good stuff in there too. Was a chapter on how to identify poison ivy, which one came in handy yesterday. There were chapters on other outdoor sturdy things, like how to start a fire without matches, which was great because Mr. Jefferson used all out up. I can't wait to try out some of the trick and see if they actually work. I led my group out to our campsite and asked to borrow a million glasses and I focused a beam sunlight though on lens some dry leaf, the way it said to do in the book. Sure enough, the leaf started smoking and eventually caught fire. Everyone was excited that we're gonna make a fire with the helping of an adult. But we got a little carried away with the high five, and Emilio's glass got crushed in the celebration. Apparently, Emilio is blind as a bat without his glasses, so now the rest of the trip might be a little challenging for him. Luckily, Giraffe wear glasses too, so we can make another fire tomorrow. When we got back to the cabin after dinner, we got cold splash of lady. The fluoride toilet added to overall bad smell in our cabin, which by now totally operating. The worst smell seemed to be coming from us, and the only way to deal with that problem was with Jordan said maybe we should one of the girls' cabin and steal some of their decorated. But they turn into big decorated about we the girl. They usually don't decorated. But what everyone was excited about was the idea of going raided. The person who most excited was Emilio. But we told him too dangerous for him to go with us since he couldn't see. He said we needed him because he was an excellent sense of smell and could sniff out of the girl cabin. We weren't see if we bluffing, so we ran him through the smell test, where he had to identify a bunch of different things. And sure enough, he got every single one. So Emily was in. We all started getting ready, but right when we were about to head it out, Mr. Nuzzy came to check on us. I guess it was pretty obvious to Mr. Nuzzy that we were on the no good. So he told us he would be able to big trouble if he caught any of us sneaking out. Plus, he heard Sal Scratch was on the Pearl tonight, so we'll better stay indoor. When Mr. Nuzzy left a few minutes later, he came back with a bottle of baby powder. He sprinkled in a big circle around our cabin so that if we did leave, a footprint would give us away. Everyone started to panic because they thought we're trapped in our cabin for the rest of the night. But I remember a chapter from my book that could help us. Eggs and ninjas had a clever way of footing their enemies when traveling. Of a group, a ninja would walk in a single file, carefully stepping into the same set of footprints. Then they ambushed their prisoner, who would be shocked, discovered that they were not following the track that one person, but maybe Mr. Nuzzy had left his own footprint in the baby powder when he was spreading it around. So all we need to do is follow exact footstep, and he'll never know we left. The only problem was that Mr. Nuzzy's footprint was a lot bigger than ours. But Mr. Jefferson had left with his hiking boots under the bed, and they looked like a perfect match. I went first. It was a little hard staying in Mr. Nuzzy's track, but I made it to the other side of the baby powder. Then I tossed the boot back to the next guy. We got everyone in the cabin that way, even Amelia, who had arrived with security. Once we were clear, we headed through the toward the girl cabins. But before we knew it was totally lost, it kind of scary because nobody even knew which way our cabin was. Then Giraffe made everything 100 times worse by bringing up the subject of Sal Scratch. Giraffe and Sal Scratch was probably watching our every move, and we're gonna pick up us one by one, eat us alive. That got my cabinets all shrinked up, and I thought that we're gonna scratch it all every direction. But Emilio saved the day when he picked up scents in the air. He said he could smell a girl cabin, and it wasn't that far off. Sure enough, one of the cabinets were about 50 feet away. We crept up as quietly as we could. Then we put some of our team building skill in action to get up the open window. It sounded like everyone was asleep inside, so I lowered myself through the window and dropped down to the floor without making a sound. But when I looked around, I realized I was in a cabin full of Girl Scouts. I decided to call off a mission to get the duration, but it was already too late. Everything after that is kind of blurred. I remember a girl yelling, hand grabbing at my ankle, and my cabinets troubling one another to get out of the front door. Then it was just mad dash through the woods. Don't ask me how, but we found our way back to our cabin. Unfortunately, we forgot all about the baby powder and we totally traveled. But at that point, it was at least of our worries. I thought the mission was totally flurried, but it turned out we didn't come back empty-handed. Graham swooped a bag at the girl cabin and brought it up with him. Pant, 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 pant. I definitely wasn't comfortable with stealing, and I said that one of us needed to sneak the bag back to the girl cabin before anyone noticed it was missing. But I got voted on the idea because everybody else was curious to see what was inside. My clothes in the bag didn't look like they belonged to any girl our age. Dump. But by the time we figured out who was the bag actually belonged to, the owner was standing in our doorway. I thought Mr. Gazzino found us because of the baby powder, but it turned out it was even easier for her than that. As soon as she opened her cabin door, she found Emilio stumbling around in the dark, which just goes to show you should never leave a man behind. Mr. Gazzino chewed at us for our Mr. Gazzino. She said we could be trusted for our own for the night, so she was gonna get the phone and find an emergency celebration. I could imagine who would be willing to drive all the way out to the place in the middle of the night, but I knew that whatever it was, he was gonna be happy about it, and it turned out I was right. And I think it's enough for today, and goodbye.